Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Langstraat. I'm the CEO of WITS. And before we really get into the meat of our program and talking with some of the leadership from CPS who's with us tonight, I would like to introduce Jeremy Cole, our board president, who will give a welcome. Jeremy is the most incredible leader of this organization, has led the board through a merger 4 years ago, has taken a second term in his leadership role, and is just one of the most extraordinary and passionate leaders that this organization has had. So with that, Jeremy.
Thank you, Brenda. Welcome, everyone. First, we want to thank the Chicago Athletic Association for hosting us for the second year in this beautiful venue. Patrick Hatton, who's our board member and the general manager here, we're grateful for all he's done for the organization. It's a very wonderful setting for us to tell all of you about all of the great things going on at WITS. As Brenda said, I currently serve as the president of the board. I've been involved with the organization for about 10 years. First today, I want to thank all of the board of directors who are here, as well as the associates board of WITS. They're very committed and passionate about their leadership of our organization. They bring time and resources to ensure that we're impacting the lives of all the students we serve. So if I could ask all of the directors and any associate board members to stand so we could recognize you. So the vision of WITS is to create an opportunity for every student in CPS to be literate. And we do this in different ways, through setting, by getting inopportune phone calls. It's the first way we do it. But we do this by setting our students on a trajectory for success, by building critical literacy skills, and developing a positive self-identity through teacher-led professional development and volunteered power mentorship programs. And we do this work at no cost to Chicago Public Schools, which is 100% privately funded. And we've been a consistent partner with CPS over the years, regardless of sometimes scarce budget resources. So every dollar and every hour given to WITS directly impacts thousands of CPS students every year. Our philosophy at WITS is to provide a sustained investment of time and money into every student we serve. It's an investment in student success, in the classroom, and in life. We hope that this foundation of success can lead to future acclimation into our local workforce. I've been a volunteer for WITS in multiple programs for about 10 years, and as anyone in the crowd who has also volunteered can attest to the connection and the impact you make on so many of these kids. And the impact comes in different ways. It obviously comes in improved literacy, but it also comes through dialogue and mentorship and enhanced perspective on the value of education and where things can lead and how being more literate can get students to where they want to be. So I'm going to let Brenda come back up here and tell you about the direction of WITS. We have some very exciting things going on in the coming years. Brenda?
Again, hi, everyone. Jeremy's tall. I am not, so I can actually use the mic stand. There we go. Again, thank you to Jeremy and to the board for your leadership. You know, any organization is only as strong as its governing board of directors. And this board is among the most engaged in town. I think a lot of it is because they're actually engaged in the service of volunteering with our students, right? And have seen over the years the impact of the programs. And our associates board, again, I just want to mention, this is like the most incredible associates board in town. You guys are crushing it this year. Oh, there's Jeremy, yeah. I mean, you guys are incredible. We're like led by the Jeremys. And the WITS staff team, could you guys raise your hands or stand, or they're not going to stand, yeah. Y'all who already know them, they are the team of the coolest, smartest, most dedicated, hardworking people. And it is an honor to go to work every day and just to be able to support the work that they do. This is incredible. I mean, we're serving 80 schools with 17 full-time people. You know, and that's not only operational excellence, that means that these are people who are doing this with gigantic heart every single day. So thank you. You guys are family and you're the best. So WITS we talk a lot about WITS, and it's one of our value statements. We really see WITS as a movement, you know, not just an organization that is delivering programs in Chicago public schools, but this is a movement of educators and volunteers and investors coming together to support a better public education for every student. Our schools cannot do it on their own. And so everything that you do to invest in an organization like WITS is moving the needle for our students. Here are the numbers, but we see numbers at a lot of events and programs, right? And organizations are reporting out on numbers. I want to talk a little bit about what these numbers mean. We are currently providing our teacher professional development programs, our Rochelle Lee Teacher Award program, and our volunteer literacy mentorship programs in 80 public schools, elementary schools. So that represents 1/5 of all elementary schools in the city. We have 1,550 volunteers. Our literacy mentors are the largest core of volunteer mentors working in Chicago public schools. This is a giant core of mentors. This organization was started by 2 women who said, I'm going to go into this classroom and help a teacher by reading one-on-one with her students. And 27 years later, this is how large the organization is. So this isn't just like a grassroots movement. This organization was founded by people who were like business savvy about this, right? Like, let's build this into a massive business, not just a grassroots groundswell of support. Annually, we send 15,000 books to the homes of our students. So we send books over winter break and over summer break as a way for us to say to these students, like, building your at-home library is one of the most important things you can do for your, in your life. And it also reminds them of being involved with WITS. So when they open that WITS bag filled with books, and many of you have given to the WITS Summer Books program, and we thank you, it's a way of connecting them to that positive experience as well. Last year, 160 classroom libraries were built. So part of the Rochelle Lee program, which we'll hear about a little bit later, is giving our teachers, high-end teacher professional development, and also a classroom in their, or a library in their classrooms. So really, our teachers are trained as microcosm librarians in the classroom, in addition to getting all of this great PD. 5,000 Rochelle Lee Teacher Award alumni in the last 27 years. This is extraordinary. Some of the finest educators in Chicago public schools have been through the Rochelle Lee Teacher Award program, many of them year after year, not just 1 year. So with that, tonight, one of the coolest things about our annual meeting is that we get to officially welcome the next class of Rochelle Lee awardees. Many of them are here with us tonight. So tonight we're welcoming the 2018-19 Rochelle Lee Teacher Awardees. This summer, our teachers have access to more than 150 hours of professional development and will receive a stipend, as I mentioned, to build a classroom library. And they really do the research to be sure that they're choosing books that are diverse, are engaging, and are really drawing students toward that love of reading and the love of learning. So I'm going to say to our teachers who are here with us tonight the same thing that I say every year, which is, you have chosen the greatest of all professions. There is not a profession greater. And there is not a better way for us to invest in our city than to invest in you. So tonight we celebrate you because you joined this great legacy of Rochelle Lee Teacher Awardees. You have been accepted into this program because of your commitment to becoming literacy leaders in your classroom and in your schools. And on behalf of WITS, it's an honor to support your work. So if you all could stand so that we can recognize you. So this year we will be serving. Yeah. This year we'll be serving 175 teachers from how many schools? I can't remember. It's 62. Okay, great. And the goal of WITS programs is that we're really integrating our volunteer literacy mentorship and our teacher programs so that we're serving entire classrooms in this way. So almost 4 years ago, the Rochelle Lee Teacher Award Program and WITS merged, creating an organization like none other in the nation, understanding that the integration of these programs will deepen the impact of our programs for our students. That these organizations are stronger together, that's the vision, and we're seeing it happen in the 4th year, giving our partner schools literacy enrichment programs to advance schools and students. One of our key thought partners when we were thinking about this merger were our partner school principals, because they know the programs really well, they know how to leverage the programs really well, and we depend on them to help guide this organization. One of our key thought partners in this merger was Robert Croston, the principal at Jenner Academy of the Arts, who, as many of you know, passed away this year. This was a tremendous loss for students, for CPS, and for organizations like WITS. Mr. Croston understood that creating language-rich, print-rich environments in the school is what drives academic success, to create that environment. We miss him. He walked the halls, stopping students and teachers, asking them what they were reading, constantly engaging the Jenner community in a dialogue about reading and learning. I mean, we felt the change in the school when he took over as principal. When students at Jenner were interviewed for a press piece about Mr. Croston after he took the head of the school, they said that when he became principal, the school felt like home. So when I was thinking of talking to you all tonight, and especially to our teachers and to our educators who are in the room, like this sums it up, right? Like when we can work together with communities of students and teachers and volunteers and drive this environment that supports a culture of a love of reading and a love of learning and that kind of engagement, then the success benchmarks academically are going to come along, right? But this is what we infuse, and this is what makes a difference. And WIT sees it all the time because we have such a large footprint in CPS. We see the schools and we support the schools that are really advancing that culture, which we'll get into a little bit later in our program. So our current, one more thing about home, right? Like this really resonates with us because we know that when there's a supportive environment and our students feel supported and excited, it does feel like home. So that's how they describe the school. And we want to do everything we can to ensure that we're doing what we can as WITS to be sure our schools feel that way. Our current strategic plan is focused on deepening the impact of this unique program model, and our overall goal is to support students as they make the transition from learning to read to reading to learn, and we're focused on making that transition in the 3rd and 4th grade. That transition is everything, and that's when true learning happens. This is the spark that we see in students when they are fluent, when they get it. Many of us in the room have memories when we were early learners of like, oh wow, now I really get this, I really comprehend this. Sometimes I feel that way just in my life generally. Maybe I'm still getting there. So this is the foundation. We talk about this level of literacy being the foundation of all other learning, but really it's interdisciplinary. It runs through all other disciplines. So to be literate is the foundation and the integrated learning in all disciplines, including science and technology and engineering and math and the arts. This is when learning comes to life, and it's so important. And now we have an opportunity, a unique opportunity to work side by side with the new leadership in place at CPS to drive every student toward grade level reading proficiency, and we believe that if we all come together, we can do this. Janice Jackson, as you all know, is at the helm of CPS. What an exciting time. She talks about CPS being a district on the rise, and it truly is. And we are seeing it firsthand as an organization. Our principals are feeling it. When we talk about culture shift, like it is really happening with Dr. Jackson. We are super excited too, because that means it gives the work of WITS and other organizations like WITS more alignment and focused with a district that we can just fall into step and accelerate what we're doing, scale what we're doing, and deepen the impact. So, the words that keep surfacing when I'm even out there talking about CPS leadership is we have alignment and focus, and it's a really exciting time. So we're honored to have 2 of these CPS urban education rock stars with us tonight. So LaTanya McDade, Chief Education Officer, and Jane Fleming, Literacy Director. So Jane and I are going to engage in a conversation, but first I'd like to introduce LaTanya. LaTanya oversees all academic offices within CPS Central Office and supports principals and network chiefs in their leadership roles. A proud product of CPS, LaTanya was a student in Chicago from kindergarten through 12th grade and went on to dedicate her entire career to the children of Chicago. In all her various roles, which include teacher, assistant principal, network chief, she has prioritized instructional equity and excellence for every child and has challenged the efficacy of traditional education models, advocating for the modernization of instructional practices throughout the district. Thank you for being here with us, LaTanya.
So now I have to take Brenda with me everywhere I go so she can call me a rock star. This is just a tremendous opportunity to be joining you this evening because I'm just such a firm believer that literacy is the cornerstone of every single thing that we do for our students. And in order to continue to move the district forward, we have to have a strong foundation for our young people. On behalf of Chicago Public Schools, I really want to thank every single individual connected to WITS for your unwavering dedication and commitment to our students and for the valued partnership that we've had with WITS over the years. For 27 years, 27 years, the team at WITS has been teaching Chicago students to love reading and to understand that educational opportunities are an investment in their future. WITS has also helped us, our teachers, to be literacy leaders. And they've encouraged Chicagoans to volunteer and make a difference in the lives of our children, which is so critically important. This partnership has been transformational. And it's transformed the lives of students and the volunteers also. The volunteers that serve our students, I believe, have experienced that same level of transformation by engaging in this critical work. And WITS has helped to move our students, not just academically, but socially and emotionally as well. And so we know we can continue to count on WITS for their support, and we're so incredibly thankful for this partnership. No matter what a child's academic interests are, their ability to read with fluency is the foundation for academic success, and WITS has been vital in this work. WITS has built libraries. You saw the data that was presented a few moments ago. They've built libraries not just in our classrooms, but in our students' homes. And more importantly, they've connected our students to mentors. And we all know that the impact that a caring adult role model can have on the life of a student is immeasurable and makes all the difference. And I can even think for myself, the adult mentors that I've had, being in CPS and the difference that it has made in my own personal life and trajectory. It's one of the greatest resources that we can ever give to enrich a student's education. And because of WITS, we're able to do this for hundreds of CPS students every single year. We're also able to see our teachers grow and thrive through the Rochelle Lee Teacher Award. We've seen this professional development opportunity help teachers improve their literacy practices and discover reading techniques that work best in their classrooms. And I know that everyone in this room, and also as a former teacher, will agree that the magic happens in the classroom. I want to congratulate the new class of awardees and thank you for taking on this additional responsibility on top of everything else that you do. And so I would like for everyone in this room to join me for another thunderous round of applause for our Rochelle Lee awardees. We are indebted to you every single day for the impact that you are making, the imprint that you are making on the lives of our students in Chicago Public Schools. I also want to acknowledge our district, our school-based leaders. We have some of the greatest educators and educational leaders in our district that have completed this program. Leaders like Dr. Olympia Bahina, I don't know if she's here tonight, but I know that she's the principal of Talcott Elementary, who I know was a member of one of the first RLTA classes. Dr. Bahina and her fellow RLTA educators have gone on to do amazing things in their schools, and we're so appreciative for our principals who partner with WITS to bring this opportunity into their school buildings. Thanks to our incredible educators, CPS students have made amazing progress in the past several years, and I think that Brenda did mention, Dr. Jackson has been talking about, we've been talking about this so much throughout the district because we're so incredibly proud. When you think about which is a long time ago, but when you think about how fast the years are going, it's really quickly. Just 30 years ago, think about when then Secretary of Education Bill Bennett stated that Chicago Public Schools was the worst school district in the nation. I remember I was graduating from 8th grade. Don't try to do the math on that. But I remember that to be a student in the district at that time, and to now be able to be in a leadership position in the district when we are a far cry from the then CPS, I think that Chicago Public Schools right now is one of the greatest school improvement stories in American history of education. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that is happening in our district, much of which is driven by the educators in this room and the educational leaders in this room. But what the Reardon study stated, for those of you who, I know everyone in this room knows about it now, Professor Sean Reardon out of Stanford did a study on Chicago Public Schools, which essentially shows that Chicago Public School students are experiencing 6 years of learning in 5 years. And we are outpacing 96% of districts nationally in terms of student growth across every demographic. And that's pretty remarkable, and it's something for us to celebrate and to be proud of, because a win for Chicago Public Schools is a win for public education everywhere. We are eager to build on this momentum, which means expanding quality academic options for our students and strengthening partnerships, which are critically important. And education advocates like WITS are the partners that we need to continue to build on this forward progress that we're making in this district. We are not doing this work alone. It takes everyone working together for the betterment of our district and for our students, because together we truly do achieve more. And so with that being said, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing someone that is very special to me and to our district, Dr. Jane Fleming. And I want to say a little bit about Dr. Fleming. I met Dr. Fleming when I was the chief officer of the Office of Teaching and Learning, and we were looking to do professional development around balanced literacy. And at the time, Dr. Fleming was a consultant. She came, we met, we talked about all of the things we wanted to do with principals and with teachers. And I will tell you, I have never seen anyone like Dr. Fleming, that she doesn't just do this work as in work that she has to do. This is something that is truly work of her heart. And it was easy to see that. When we began our search for a director for the Department of Literacy, and I and Dr. Jackson, we were talking about the type of person that we need to move this district forward when it comes to literacy. You know, it's funny because we called Jane and we said, hey, you know, we're looking for someone for the Department of Literacy, and we kind of outlined everything that we were looking for, and lo and behold, it was Jane that we were looking for. So, and here's the funny thing about this. Jane wasn't looking for a position. She already had, you know, a ton of work that she was doing, consulting for districts all across the nation. This wasn't something that she, you know, had to do. But as we described what we were looking for, and she took a look at our vision around equity in excellence, not just equity and access to education, but equity and excellence to high quality education for every single student. Because we very deeply believe that your zip code, who your parents are, who you're born, what family you're born into, what your background is, what your race is, none of that should matter when it comes to accessing high quality education to improve life outcomes. And so, you know, Jane thought about it. She was supposed to come back with this list of people that she would recommend. And she said she just had a strong conviction that if I believe in this work and I know that the vision that Chicago Public Schools has laid out is fundamental to my core values, then the person I'm looking for is me. And so I just want to say so much gratitude and thank you to Dr. Fleming, because we got so lucky and so fortunate and so blessed, not just to have someone that has the knowledge and the expertise, but someone that is driven by their core values, that understands the inequities that exist in education, and understands and is unapologetic about calling that out and then doing something about it. So I want to introduce to you someone who I believe in. I feel so fortunate to have leading the literacy work in our district, someone who was a partner with Dr. Jackson and I. We could not have found a better person to lead the way for our young people, to change life outcomes for them, and to understand that equity is a moral imperative, not just in this district, but everywhere. And so I'm so grateful that she accepted the charge of leading the Department of Literacy for Chicago Public Schools. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jane Fleming.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, my mic's alive.
Check, check, check.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. So Jane and I are going to have a chat about her vision and the framework that she's putting around the work that she's doing in the literacy department. Before we dive into a lot of this, I just want to say that there was like a very special moment for WITS as an organization when Jane and I were leaving, Kids Like Us, an organization that she co-founded, and WITS are part of the Chicago Literacy Alliance, an alliance of more than 100 organizations that are focused on advancing our students and advancing literate communities. And she said, do you have some time? I want to talk to you. And she shared with me that she was taking the post, the head of the literacy department at CPS. And there was this moment that I'm like, all these things are about to happen, the same moment that you all had. For us, it's like, a lot of organizations that partner with Chicago Public Schools, sometimes there is that like special leadership team that comes together and everything changes and accelerates, right? And the city changes. And we believe, no pressure, Jane, but
I'm following her lead.
This work is going to change our city, and focusing on literacy and equitable access to literacy resources. It is public health. It is, public safety. It is all of these things that we need to address as a city. So these are exciting times. Okay, so all of that said, tell us, Jane, how you got here. What did reading mean?
We're just going to chat, right?
We're just going to chat.
Yeah, okay.
What did reading mean? So let's get to know you. What did reading mean to you in your youth? What role has literacy played in your career? LaTanya talked about this being a calling for you. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I want to thank again Chief McDade for that incredible introduction. And I want to thank you all for being here. And thanks, Brenda, for the invitation to come and talk a little bit, share a little bit of our vision, tell you a little bit about what the Department of Literacy is up to in terms of our strategic priorities, and just continue to reinforce the partnership that we've built for so many years. I've started to say that this is the most important job I'll ever have. I'm 100% convinced of that. To be entrusted with having an impact on the literacy learning of 380,000 children is something that I think about pretty much every minute of every day. And I'm grateful to be here. I can't believe I have this job, quite frankly, to tell you the truth. And I'm excited to continue to partner with you all to make great things happen, continue to make great things happen in Chicago. How did I get here? It'd be easy to rattle off like a list of sort of, educational and career milestones, and this is maybe gonna sound trite or maybe prepared for this particular event, but I really believe at my core that the reason I am sitting in this chair right now is because I was an early reader. My mom worked in a preschool in a YMCA, and she took me as a toddler to school every day with her. And I was immersed from very early on in a rich literacy environment, from the time before I can remember. My mother was also an avid reader. We were talking earlier about like this idea of caring adult mentors, which WITS provides so many of for our students. And she was certainly that person for me, as were many of my teachers in the early grades. I can remember just week after week going to the public library, trying to get a stack of books, as large as my mom's to carry home and really devour as a young child. And I became an early reader, and it put me literally on a trajectory to educational success, having that reinforced, I think, throughout my schooling, en route to having access to excellent educational opportunities in college and beyond. And here I am. So I'm not kidding when I say I think, along with you all, that early literacy makes all the difference, and that's what we're here to work on together.
Great. So you've been in this role since late 2017, and we talk at WITS all the time. We feel like Jane is in like a sprint with her team, right? To like build a vision. They are just like tireless. They are like moving. So there's a bold vision statement, which is literacy leads to equity. We believe this at WITS. We've been talking about this over and over again, that we have an opportunity to support our students in this way. So talk about how your team got to this vision, what this vision means to CPS, and what it means to Chicago at large. And we say literacy leads to equity, what does that look like?
Sure. So I just want to emphasize that this is really the result of the vision of our leaders, Dr. Jackson and Chief McDade, in sort of putting forth our 3-year vision. Success starts here. So Department of Literacy tries to draw on our mission in all that we do. We are part of the Office of Teaching and Learning, so the large majority of what we do is really centered around high quality, rigorous instruction for every child in every neighborhood, and really empowering talented and motivated educators to make great things happen for students. So our core beliefs in terms of the district align really well, I think, with the core beliefs of our team. When I first started at the Department of Literacy, a lot of our team was new as well. And so we spent a lot of time doing kind of beliefs and visioning work, just really talking about what's important to us, what we believed in at our core. We found a lot of alignment with the district's core beliefs, which we were thrilled about. And in particular, our team began to hone in on the idea of equity as a moral imperative, and really adopted that as our guidepost, really. And we have a set of collective beliefs that I think we'll just talk about a little bit later. But essentially, we're trying to keep this idea of equity at the forefront in the same way that Chief McDade just described, right? We want a high quality literacy learning experience for every child in every neighborhood, and we really believe that literacy does lead to equity, not just of opportunity, but of outcomes. And we see ourselves as a literacy department as leaders in that path towards equity for our students. So we sort of liked as a team that this sort of has a double meaning for us, and we talk about this and revisit it very regularly in our work.
Right, and I will say, for many of us who are in the literacy space in these organizations, when we see this vision statement, it gives us enhanced energy, to do the work. This is a big vision we believe in.
I will say too that I got really lucky, I think, and this again is tribute to Chief McDade, in terms of recruiting a team who also shares these core beliefs. So I came in last, but I came into a team that clearly had been selected in a way that we were going to be able to collectively see through the district's vision.
Let's just call it leadership alignment, not you came in last. Sometimes it's the person who happens to come in last that just aligns everything else. So there you go. So the organization you co-founded, which is why WITS and why we know each other through the Chicago Literacy Alliance, is The organization you co-founded, Kids Like Us, is just committed to getting books in the hands of students that reflect their diverse experiences. We're committed to that as an organization, as we mentioned, getting books into the homes, books that resonate with students. How important is that access to these engaging books in this overall vision that literacy leads to equality? And what role does simply having access to more diverse books mean for students in CPS?
So this is a big part of what we talk about as a team in terms of the way we're approaching equity. In terms of our short-term plan, which I'll just describe for a quick minute to sort of set the stage on this, we're really thinking about equity in the distribution of instruction, resources, and partnerships across the city. And this is one of the things actually that we're grateful to WITS for. You have partnerships with 80 Chicago public schools, and they are spread throughout the city. We don't see this with every partner, right? This sort of commitment to really distributing resources, not just in some neighborhoods, but across. And we're really looking at instruction, resources, and partnerships. We want to also invest in professional learning that moves teacher practice, and we can talk more about that if you're interested. But this idea of tailoring instruction, I think, is what you're getting at, Brenda. We really want to focus on tailoring instruction to our culturally, linguistically, and socioeconomically diverse districts. So it's not just, generic approaches to literacy instruction have worked well for some students, but not all. And we're really looking at ways that we can tailor literacy instruction for those students for whom generic approaches are not necessarily helping to reduce achievement gaps. And so one of the ways that we're doing that is to really think about and support teachers in their text selection when it comes to balanced literacy. I was working for about 15 years ago maybe in St. Louis public schools as a literacy coach. And at the time we had gotten a grant to go around and beef up our classroom libraries. So I was talking with children and teachers about if you had a wish list for your classroom library, what would it be? What would you want to read more of? And at the time I went and visited one of our third grade classrooms, and students were reading the book Junebug. I don't know if anybody in the room would know this book, a few nods. This is a book about a young boy, 10 years old, who's growing up in a housing complex in New Haven, Connecticut. And it's really a friendship and family story about what's going on in Junebug's life and challenges that he faces in the neighborhood and joys that he has in his experiences with his friends. And it was a neighborhood very similar to the neighborhood I worked in North St. Louis. And when I asked children in this particular classroom what they wanted to read more of, an 8-year-old boy said to me, "We want to read more books like Junebug about kids like us." And that third grader pretty much changed the course of my career. And we started as a group of teachers to really think about how text selection can make such a difference. And we talk all the time about the idea of windows and mirrors, right? We want to have many books that are that are mirrors for students in which they can see themselves, their families, their communities reflected and valued, and lots of window books that also open up students to the wider world. And what we discovered at the time is we had lots of windows and not so many mirrors in our classroom. And so we really were sort of working to beef up our libraries with books in which students could see themselves and their communities represented. So using not only books like the ones depicted on the left, which all children love as well, right? We love these books. Using books like that for literacy instruction, but also using books like the ones on the right. And this is really important for a number of reasons, right? Probably it's no news to you that it's important to help students feel sort of connected and included in school, that school is for and about me and I can do well here. But the other thing that we started doing is really researching the impact that this was having on students' language and literacy development. And what you start to see is that it's not only just a good idea for inclusion, but that culturally relevant text can actually help students learn to read and write. And so this is what we're up to sort of in the Department of Literacy, is really thinking about and working with teachers to better tailor instruction to the particular diversity of our district. And we're seeing this impact on student engagement. We're seeing impact on language productivity and literature discussions with young children, right? You just can't get kids to stop talking about the books, which is a good thing for those of you who know about early literacy. We're seeing a lot of impact on depth of comprehension. And then I know I'm going on too long about this, but I just want to say
this is your wheelhouse. So
one other thing, and that is that we're starting to see an impact also on teachers' perceptions of students' capabilities. And for some of you in the room who are familiar with sort of the research on academic self-concept, this idea that school is about and for me, and I can do well here, and that connection to long-term academic achievement, this is really, really, really important. And a lot of the teachers that we're working with are admitting these are great teachers, right? Really solid educators, but admitting that maybe they had too low expectations for the students. And when they read a book, use a book in a unit that allows children to bring what they know and to bring their expertise to the literacy learning, it changes the whole dynamic. So in a very long answer to your very short question, that's what we're thinking about in terms of tailoring balanced literacy instruction to be a little bit more responsive to the needs of our kids.
It's absolutely critical, and I mean, we see it in our programs all the time. We have Ellen, where's Ellen, who curates all of our books, and Ellen has probably read every book for young people. And, you know, we're really careful, and, you know, it's just, as I'm listening to you, the story of this third grader who really changed the path of your career, I know many of us who are literacy mentors have had this experience in our volunteer programs, right? When we have a student who's like, I don't want to read, I don't like reading, I'm not good at it. But our volunteers are trained to really drive students toward that level of engagement, right? So when I started at WITS, I started volunteering in a program with our third graders in the midday mentoring program at Drake Elementary. And I have a student who's like, oh, I don't want to read, but okay, I guess I'll read. And he was, you know, just so intelligent that he was starting to make up the stories based on the pictures, but really wasn't reading, wasn't comprehending at a level. But we got to a place where we realized that he was like super into sharks. So I came back and we're like, we are going to have to find every book about sharks, you know, that is out there, including graphic novels, which can be, you know, such a tool for our students. So it's absolutely critical. It's not, it's absolutely critical to this overall vision, right? So Chief McDade talked about the Sean Reardon report, which, you know, we're also excited about, and I think really gives the district this momentum. But, you know, talk about this report a little bit. And, you know, whenever, and I'm a development person, I'm a fundraiser, that's my background, that's my experience. When you have leverage and you have momentum, you use it to like accelerate, right? So let's talk a little bit about the Reardon report and how we can all come together to support the district and support students in using this as momentum and using this as leverage.
Yeah, and as Chief McDade already described, like this is an incredibly exciting time in the district. We're really, really proud of the fact that our students are making these gains, right? 6 years of gains in 5 years. We're outpacing other similar urban districts in terms of academic achievement. And the good news is that this is happening for all students across demographics. This is a little complicated, so don't worry about the details of this graph, but if you can see those white lines sort of running through the middle in terms of academic achievement and the slope of the growth, you can see that for all students, this is a graph that sort of has students broken down by racial group. Everybody's on the rise, right? And so it's sort of this idea that, what's the phrase? Rising tides lift all boats.
Lift all boats, yeah.
I can never get that right. Is it
he
right?
He always gets it right for us. And somehow
something like that. At any rate, that's sort of what we're seeing happening, right? And we attribute that to the idea that we're sort of pulling from the top. That we've really done a lot of work on shoring up what we call kind of our core instruction, right? So high quality, early literacy, balanced literacy instruction is resulting in gains for all students across the district. So we're super, super excited about this. The other thing that we're seeing, so the Reardon report focuses mostly on 4th through 8th grade and is showing these gains compared to other districts across the country. But what we're also noticing is that 3rd grade students in more recent cohorts in Chicago public schools have higher reading scores than previous cohorts. And what Reardon then takes this to mean, the other thing you see is relatively even growth across 4th through 8th grade, which means there's not a huge grade level effect there. And so what they're interpreting this to mean is that there's something going on prior to 3rd grade, right? Prior to kids coming into 4th. That may be accounting for this momentum, right? So we're super excited about that. Our fearless leader reminds us that, yes, we can celebrate those achievements, but we better not sit back and be complacent, right? Because we still have a lot of work to be done. And even though this is great news across the district and great news for all groups of students, we're still seeing persistent achievement gaps across racial groups, right? So race continues to be a strong predictor of outcomes for students. And we know that the difference, these lines that are, the dotted line represents sort of the national average, and these purple and blue lines that are just below that represent African American and Latino students, and the lines just above that represent white and Asian American students. So we're seeing that our being at the top of our demographic still means that many, many, many of our students, right, are on the lower cusp of average. What I've started to refer to as this demographic glass ceiling, right? It's, the researchers will tell you that it's very, very hard to sort of break through this demographic. But we really need to think about the difference in outcomes for students who are either at just below average versus being like a standard deviation above that, right? There are huge differences in long-term outcomes for these students, and we know that. And in Chicago Public Schools, we're committed to equity as a moral imperative. We want high academic standards for all children, every child, every neighborhood, full stop, no excuses. And so what we're really focusing on now as the Department of Literacy is, what can we do to close those gaps? And what we think we can do is, certainly we have work to do across the full grade range, right? We're not going to neglect 4th through 8th. I think the work that we can do in around alignment with teachers and within schools to make sure we're really building on progress year to year could be really helpful. But the other thing we're thinking about is, how can we start to think about leveraging this momentum and whatever is going on prior to 3rd grade to really close those gaps for students coming in. Because if you close them, sorry, I can't show you, but when you close that gap, even a little bit, you can break through that average, that sort of demographic glass ceiling. And so that's what we're planning to do. That's what needs to be done. And we think Chicago Public Schools can be the district that shows how you can break through that demographic glass ceiling.
Yeah, and we all know that we can do it in Chicago, right?
That's right.
And that will change the landscape of this city. And so many barriers, so many walls for our kids will be broken down. We talk a lot about at WITS, and Jane and I have had extensive conversations about the CEO Business Roundtable report that came out last year. So this is a group of CEOs nationwide who from time to time publish a report giving policy advice and calls to action about things that are impacting our economic engine and our workforce. What they chose to report on this last time was why reading matters and what to do about it. And it was talking about how the U.S. has a unique opportunity to close these gaps, exactly what Jane is talking about. And actually, it's a matter of building a stronger workforce. We already know that it's an indicator of high school graduation, academic trajectory, and like all of this. But by 2020, if we don't start to close these gaps, then there will be 5 million people in the workforce that don't have the basic literacy skills to do the job, right? So we talk about, this work also in terms of workforce development, which is so exciting. Jane, I think your next slide is the value statements of the department, right? This is so cool. It's such good work. And so I'm going to combine a couple of our questions, talk a little bit about the value statements and the role that you see WITS playing and other service providers in delivering and implementing these values into action, right? One of the first things that you did in your role is to work with WITS and other organizations to bring together basically a thought convening around what does this look like for us to advance our 3rd graders. So talk a little bit about why it was so important that you wanted to do that right away and do kind of this like thought convention, and also what we can do to help you all, help the district advance.
Sure. Well, you said it before in your opening remarks that schools can't do this alone. And sort of coming in just recently in the past few months, I had a clear understanding of sort of the broader landscape of what's happening in Chicago with so many outstanding literacy partners. We actually are a city that is tremendously blessed to have many, many organizations, as we know through the 120 that are connected to the Chicago Literacy Alliance, really as true partners in this work. We're a small but mighty department in CPS, in the Department of Literacy, and we're rearing to go, but we know we need partners in this work. We're grateful that so many partners like WITS do have values and missions that are aligned with the kind of work that we aim to do as well. So I think about things like the immersion in language and literacy-rich environments that put a premium, right, on oracy and literacy in community with others. This idea of providing reading mentors, basically, to students to help them develop their literacy identities that you were talking about earlier, is sort of a key part of what we want to do. Because you all know, the joy around reading and writing comes from relationships.
Right.
If you think back to your earliest literacy experiences, probably ones that you pull out of your hat as being most important had to do with sitting in a lap, or being read to on the rug, or sharing a book with a friend or a family member that you just had to get out of your hands into theirs because it was so good, right? So a lot of this is relationship-based, and I think that WITS really embraces that core value of ours.
Right, and it's something that we've talked about a lot, Jane, is that these students must be able to read and comprehend, but then to communicate, to express themselves in meaningful ways. And especially now in our increasingly digital world, and all these different social media platforms, and information is coming at our students in a very different way than it was for many of us coming through school, right? They must process information really quickly and be able to decipher what is good information, what is not helpful information. And also that it is so valuable to slow down and to read and to comprehend, and to take a moment. I think, we can get there, and that's why, at WITS we talk about, our tagline is building communities, empowering readers. There's that empowerment that, yes, I can learn, yes, I can move forward in this world in a very literate way. And also, I am part of a community that cares about each other and each other's narrative.
That's right.
And to build more literate communities in our city is to build these agencies of empathy, right? Which is so critical to advancing our students and advancing our neighborhoods. It will build a stronger city. It's not a small vision, but it is possible, and closing some of those gaps makes it more possible.
Yeah, and I think another way that, excuse me, WITS is so strong in sort of developing community is among educators, right? You all are in for a treat. The new awardees, congratulations, by the way. But I have been witness to the kind of professional learning that WITS offers all through the summer at Chicago Litter Center, which is a great place to hang out, by the way.
It's the best. It's the coolest.
But this community of teachers that you're establishing sort of year after year after year after year, engaging in teacher-led professional development, which we all know is the best kind of PD, because it's best to hear from your colleagues what is working, what's going well, right, getting advice. So that community of learners, I think, is really, really important. And the other thing, in terms of alignment with some of our values, is this idea to unrestricted access to instructional resources and the work that you've been doing, as Chief McDade already described and you've pointed out, around building really high-quality classroom libraries and providing home library access as well. We know that even a small number of books in a child's home, I'm talking about 10 or 12 books, can make a big difference in terms of longer-term outcomes for literacy learning. And so the work that WITS is doing in both of those areas, providing teachers with resources for beefing up their classroom libraries, with attention to cultural and linguistic diversity, as well as providing students with their own home libraries is obviously aligned with what we believe and is a tremendous benefit to our students, so thank you for that.
Yes. So Tina is flashing that I have 3 minutes.
Oh,
so
that's my
so
fault.
we're gonna
It's entirely my fault.
We're gonna you know, I read an article in the New York Times recently that it's like actually healthy for our brains to have more books in our homes than we have read at any given time, which like makes us all feel less guilty, right, about the giant stack of books that we have like on our nightstand or in our at-home libraries, and it's so critical. You know, so Jane, let's talk just for the last couple minutes that we have left about what happens now? What do we do? I know that what I really want to encourage everyone who is here tonight to do is go out and talk about what's happening at CPS. There is incredible work and magic happening in so many of our schools. These learning communities are coming together. This leadership team that is in place is truly extraordinary. And when we're out there talking about the work that is getting done, that is being done, then people want to get involved. You can, of course, we're privately funded, so you can give more money to WITS. That's awesome. But also your time. I mean, I get a paycheck from WITS. Thank you, Jeremy and the board. But one of the greatest things I think I've done in my life is volunteering in the program. And Jane, you mentioned this earlier. It makes us more civic-minded. And helps us to better talk about what's going on in our neighborhoods and our communities, because what is more critical to our neighborhoods than our public schools? This is where everything happens. So what Jane and I have been working on, with other folks and other organizations, governmental agencies, is how do you create kind of that the school as the center where this literacy magic is happening, but we're all investing in it. And then we're all coming out of it and telling the story and bringing more awareness. So we encourage you to do all of those things and talk with us at WITS, talk to our board members and our staff members about how we're putting shape around some of these initiatives. But Jane, what else can we be doing for you and for the district as you move forward with your vision?
Yeah, I think for sure spreading the good news would be helpful, right? Sometimes we don't always hear great news consistently, and the more that we have partners who come from an event like this, maybe learn a new thing or two, even talking at home, out in your social circles, would be great to just spread the message about the positive things that are happening. I also want to encourage you to, along those lines, really support the teachers and educators in your life. The ones in this room right now, and anybody who is a champion for young children, because again, they're really doing the best work and the hardest work that we ask of almost anybody. And we could really just use your support in knowing that you've got our backs. And sort of supporting the teachers in your lives and spreading the good news about what's happening in the district.
Awesome. Jane, LaTanya, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Just a couple of other things before we go drink beer and wine. Patrick Hatton, thank you so much for having us here at the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel. This is a hotel that is committed to literacy in a very real way. So WITS has been a beneficiary of your generosity in many ways, and your employees volunteer in a program. And so we're always grateful to be in this house. Thank you. So another way you can support WITS, the Blackboard Affair, is our big gala. It's how many people, Alex? 600 people-ish? We squeeze every person that we can into Revel Fulton Market, and it is fun. It is one of the best. We'll go to a lot of galas. This is a really good one. So the Blackboard Affair is Saturday, November 3rd. Revel Fulton Market is Creative Black Tie. It's a blast. And this year we will be honoring Deloitte, our corporate partner, who is so incredible. They do a workplace mentoring program. And we have Ron Sonnenthal and Tristan Slemons here with us from Deloitte. Ron has been on the board for a gajillion years, Ron, since the time you were 3 years old-ish, right? Tristan is head of their corporate social responsibility and herself very dedicated to literacy and literacy causes. And so we're super excited to honor Deloitte. Dorn Eastwood, where's Dorn? We are honoring Dorn this year with the outstanding Dorn So Humble. Raise your hand for real. Dorn is, truly a visionary when it came to Boundless Readers and WITS coming together as an organization. It was when Dorn and I first started to, explore this, and then with John Martin and Jeremy Cole, we were really introduced through the Chicago Literacy Alliance and other board members who were really involved with both WITS and Boundless Readers. And what a perfect marriage, right? I'm looking at Barbara Kent, so many of the visionaries around this, what a perfect marriage of programs, especially as we think about the newly aligned, vision of the literacy department. This is the work that we're doing, and we're here to support you. So come to the Blackboard Affair. It's going to be awesome. Please stay and hang out, and thank you so much for being here.